Project Zomboid is a hardcore survival game where all it takes is one bite to end it all. How long can one man survive in this apocalypse? It's a question of fortitude and willingness to survive. This journey follows a gentleman named Tough Guy and sees how long he can fend off the Grim Reaper before inevitably being taken away. Does he have what it takes? Our journey starts with our hero, Guy, waking up in his house with no clothes on, with the zombies shambling outside the windows. He hurriedly grabbed some clothes and all the food in his kitchen, knowing he needed something to eat, as he was already underweight. Afterward, he ran to his garage in an attempt to find some weapons to defend himself. Securing a metal pipe, he went out to take action against the undead that gathered around his house. He fought for an hour before realizing that he was too weak, and he gave up. He ran around town until he stumbled upon a warehouse that was full of industrial tools that he would repurpose as weapons. With those newfound weapons, he headed out, full of confidence, ready to take down any zombie that crossed his path. While slaying zombies, he spotted a boarded up house, which he thought could have some goodies inside. For now though, he would have to leave it and find somewhere to stay for the night, as it was getting dark. After searching for an hour, he found a cozy house to stay in for the night, planning to find something more permanent after he got a stronger foothold in the town. Day 2 started with Guy looting a nearby warehouse, then heading over to a nearby set of stores. There he found a Jeep in pretty good condition, but it had an empty gas tank. Inside those stores he found more food and industrial tools that he would once again repurpose as weapons. When he went back outside, he was greeted by many zombies who were hungry for his flesh. He spent quite a few hours fighting the zombies before being overrun by the amount of zombies swarming him, to which he ran back home and got a good night's sleep. On the morning of day 3, Guy went to the World Supply Store, just across from where he found that Jeep on the previous day. He found some more weapons and tools that he planned to use against the zombie hordes. Once again, he was met by a couple dozen zombies outside the store. He killed them and organized the plundered loot into the Jeep. After finishing that, he went over to the small police station to secure any weapons and ammo that he could find. He didn't find much, but every little bit counts. With all the loot acquired and stored in the Jeep, he decided to find a new place to call home on the north side of the city. Day 4 was pretty generic for Guy, as the first half was spent looting nearby houses for supplies, with him returning home every few hours to drop everything off. That evening he went into town with the goal of looting a bookstore for all the skills and magazines that he would need in his future journey. On the way he found a warehouse that he looted for even more weapons and tools. Other than that, the day was pretty uneventful. Day 5 was another pretty eventful day for Guy, but he did loot that survivor house that he had spotted on day 1. The house had quite a few nice melee weapons that he could use, but only a little more for Tough Guy. He then drove to the gas station to fill up all the gas cans and his car that he had. But there, he found another warehouse full of shelves, bristling with loot, ready for the taking. He gobbled it all up and headed back home, where he had a peaceful night. Day 6 was once again another uneventful day. He found a working sedan and took it to loot another warehouse that was just on the outside of town. He spent the whole day fighting groups of zombies that kept coming after him. He looted the warehouse and a couple nearby houses before heading back to his base. With the first week ending, Tough Guy wanted to make sure he had plenty of supplies stocked up, and he didn't want to leave any major parts of the town unlooted. He took his Jeep down to a shopping plaza to check what the stores had to offer. The first one he checked was a tech store, which he used in order to disassemble items for the electricity XP. Preceding that, he went next door to another bookstore, where he grabbed a few books that he didn't yet have. He was almost ready to leave when he noticed that another store on the other side of the plaza was a hardware store. The sun was ready to set, but he decided to stay an extra hour in order to loot the store. He busted down the front door and looted all the tools inside. Outside in the parking lot, he found a key to a working van, which he hooked up to the back of his Jeep and took it home. He planned to use it for storage and transportation. Otherwise, the night was uneventful. Day 8 was very tedious, but an important day nonetheless. He spent the entire day organizing the loot he had gathered after his first week in the Kentucky exclusion zone. He was planning to move to his east to a town called West Point. It was a fairly large town where he thought he could find plenty of supplies that could last him the rest of the month. By the end of the day, the Jeep and van he had previously found was all packed up with items that he would use, and he was now ready to leave and make the journey eastward. Even though he could leave any day he wanted, he decided he was going to stay a couple more days to ensure he had all the supplies he needed and to level up some of his skills. Day 9 started pretty uneventful. Tough Guy was focused on increasing his carpentry and metalworking skills by disassembling furniture from nearby houses. He spent the entire day disassembling couches, sinks, cabinets, beds, fridges, and so on. He worked into the late afternoon until he returned home, planning to improve his house by boarding up the windows and leaving a stockpile of canned food and weapons before leaving it behind. Around 6 p.m., he heard a distant humming coming from the sky. His heart sank, and he quickly ran inside to hide from the approaching helicopter. He knew that the noise alone would draw in many zombies, and he didn't want to risk those zombies swarming his house. He hunkered down for a few hours until nightfall, when he was certain that the helicopter was gone. He was relieved nothing terrible had happened, but it strengthened his resolve to get out of town as quickly as possible. Not wanting to waste the rest of the night, he headed out into the dark to continue disassembling furniture in nearby houses to ensure he got the most out of his time in the town before leaving. Day 10 was once again spent improving skills before he moved on to bigger things. Just like the previous day, he spent all his time disassembling furniture and items from random houses. That night, when he was organizing and checking on his loot, he noticed that his medical supplies were almost non-existent. So that night, he decided to head into town and loot the local clinic. He gathered a healthy amount of medical supplies and headed home, ready to venture out in the morning. It was day 11, and he woke up bright and early, ready to start his road trip. He drove for a couple hours until he arrived in northern West Point, far enough away to not be swarmed by zombies, but close enough to drive easily into town. He spent the whole day scouting the local area and clearing all zombies around his house. He picked a quaint little residence that was big enough to be comfortable, but not too big that he had to worry about maintaining it. He spent the day securing the area around the house, and then started the process of moving into his new home. The next morning he spent fortifying his new base and unloading all his loot that he had brought. It took quite a few hours, but he boarded up the windows and managed to unload everything into his house. That evening, he went back out to explore more local houses, where he found a truck that looked to be in excellent condition. Just like the Jeep, it was also out of gas, so he planned for the next day that he would bring gas and drive it back home. With that, he headed back home and slept the night away. First thing in the morning on day 13, Tough Guy returned to the house with the pickup truck, making sure to bring fuel for it. When he arrived, he was met by quite a few guests that he had to deal with before filling up the truck and taking it back home. He checked out a couple nearby houses and farms, but ultimately didn't find much. The whole day was just spent gathering supplies, and not much of importance took place. Day 14 was pretty short, with the majority of the day spent organizing the loot in his new base. He took a short break in the evening, going fishing, with the equipment that he had gathered in the previous town. He fished for a couple hours, but only caught a couple small fish. He ate one that night, and decided to freeze the others for when the power went off. Day 15 started with a guy going to the school to check for books or anything else he could find. He knew the school must have had a library, and wanted to check for all the magazines that he had yet to read. Unfortunately, he was overwhelmed by zombies quite quickly, and forced to retreat north into some residential houses. Across the street from the school, he saw a survivor's house and decided to check it out. Inside there were quite a few weapons that he had found, but he could not carry them all. So he grabbed as many as he could and ran back to his Jeep. He dumped the weapons into the back of the Jeep and ran down the street to grab more. But as he walked down the street, he saw many more zombies coming at him. Knowing that there were too many for him to handle, he got in his Jeep and drove off. He drove back home to drop everything off and lay low for the night. Hoping the zombies had dispersed overnight, Tough Guy drove back to the survivor's home to collect the remaining weaponry. By noon, he had looted everything and was back in his base, dropping off his newfound weapons and continued to organize things. In the evening, he wanted to drive to a nearby gas station on the edge of town to ensure he had a secure source of fuel for his future needs. Unfortunately, at the gas station, many zombies needed to be dealt with. The combat was heavy and tiring. Zombies kept coming out of the woodwork in an attempt to bring down Tough Guy. Being extremely tired, Tough Guy needed to retreat. He hopped in his Jeep and drove to a nearby set of houses just north of the gas station to set up a defense. He killed a couple zombies that had managed to follow him, and was intoxicated with confidence, thinking that he could take on a whole army. He was foolish, and nearly paid with his life. He screamed at the zombies, drawing in dozens. He put up a defense in the house, hoping to funnel the zombies in through a window, where there he stomped and slashed their head as they fell through. Zombies poured through the window, faster than he could keep up. He opened the door, and to his surprise, a few zombies were already inside, shoving zombies that blocked him, and as he made it outside, he stumbled and fell to the ground, dropping his weapon in his hands. His life flashed before his eyes, but he managed to get back up and run back to his Jeep, where he drove all the way back home, not believing what just had happened. Day 17 started pretty calm, especially after the night before. He went around looting houses and checking out neighborhoods. He grabbed what supplies he could find and just wanted to lay low for the time being. Since the power was on and he still had unlimited supply to gas, he decided to drive around the city and scout. In the parking lot of the Gigamart, he spotted a trailer generator. He decided that he needed that generator for when the power inevitably went out. He backed his Jeep up to it, ready to hitch it up. But as soon as he exited his Jeep, zombies were already swarming around him. At first, thinking it was only a few of them, he tried to fight them back so he could secure the trailer and drive away before getting into serious trouble like the night before. Few turned into many, and he was quickly surrounded before he even knew it. He ran away from the Jeep in an attempt to lure the zombies away and create a distraction so he could create space around the Jeep and drive it out of there. After doing many loops, he eventually ran back to the trailer, hooked it up, and narrowly driving away. By the time he drove out of the parking lot, it was very dark, but he was on an adrenaline high. His mind wandered, thinking about his brushes with death over the past 2 weeks. He had just wanted to get home, away from this mess. But he had realized too late. He was driving straight into a police blockade. He came to a screeching halt. The road was completely blocked in front of him, and he could see zombies coming at him. He tried putting it in reverse, but the trailer was hard to maneuver. His heart was racing, and he was panicking. He jumped out and ran for his life, leaving so quickly that he forgot the keys in the ignition. He ran into the night, just wanting to make it home, alive, not caring about anything else. Day 18. Tough Guy woke up in his bed, his heart racing, drenched in sweat. He was going to bring guns and ammo to shoot all the zombies that blocked him from his car. He grabbed shotgun and shells from the living room and headed out. He decided to drive the truck down south, only a block away from where the Jeep was. The gunshots drew them in by the dozens. And he was quickly overwhelmed. He shot every shell he had, killing as many zombies as he could, but it was of no use. He ran back to base, completely out of ammo. Wasting no time, he grabbed another rifle from his living room and went back out to clean up the mess that he had made before the night was over. That was the plan anyway. Night had quickly set, and the job was not done. Tough Guy needed somewhere to sleep for the night. He ran through the suburbs till he found a random house to sleep in, away from the zombies. Day 19 was exactly the same as the previous day. Tough Guy spent the entire day killing hordes of zombies before sleeping the night away in another random house that he had found. Day 20 started a bit slowly, with Tough Guy cleaning up the zombies around the Jeep. Eventually it was clear enough that he could drive the Jeep through a back alley and around the police barricade. There was still quite a lot of daylight left, so he decided to go back to the area where he left the other truck and try to get it back home as well. There, he found quite a more zombies. After dealing with quite a few hordes, he found a portable generator. He threw it in the truck and headed back to base. Tough Guy reflected on the previous days and noticed that although he had quite a large variety of weaponry, he lacked ammo for most of it. He decided that he would go to the local gun store in an attempt to collect more supplies that he wanted. He got there, and zombies kept assaulting him. He wasn't sure where they were all coming from, but more importantly, they didn't stop coming. He spent the entire day fending them off. He had gained access to the store by using a sledgehammer he had found in the first week, and in between fighting, he looted what he could and put it in his car. By the late evening, the sun was ready to set, so he decided to drive back to base and organize his spoils from the day. It was already day 22, and the power had yet to go out. So that morning, he decided he would go out to a gas station on the edge of town to secure it, to ensure he had a safe gas station that he could hook up with a generator and have a stable source of fuel after the power went out. After clearing and filling up what he could, he decided to drive back to base. On his way home, he saw a trailer in a driveway that he decided would be perfect for hauling loot. It took him about an hour of scuffling with zombies before he hooked it up and continued his drive back to base. There, he spent the rest of the day working on mechanic skills with a broken down van that he had pulled out of the street. It was day 23, and Tough Guy needed a break from all the action from the last week. He took the day off to work on his skills and do chores around the base. He worked mostly on carpentry and metalworking by disassembling more furniture around the area. He also drove back to the gas station to ensure that all his gas cans and Jeep were filled up. He was also quite worried that the power would shut off any days now. At the gas station, he had found a working sedan and took it back to base as well. The rest of the night was quite uneventful, but he wanted to make sure he was prepared for when the power inevitably did shut off. The morning of day 24, it finally happened. The power shut off. Fortunately, since he was worried about the power shutting off, he was already well prepared. Still though, he wanted to continue taking a break from the action, and spent the rest of the day working on skills, mostly mechanics. It was nearing the end of the month, and Tough Guy wanted to ensure he had looted the most important locations of West Point and to stock up his safe house. He had realized that he hadn't looted the police station that was in the center of town, so he took his truck and trailer down there to see what he could find. As a common theme, when he arrived, he was met by many zombies, which he tried to fight off. He spent a couple of hours using melee weapons to fight off the zombies, but ultimately he decided that there were too many. He fled back to base. That night he spent a couple hours devising a plan on how to clear the zombies and how long it might take him. He was hoping it would be short and sweet, but deep down, he knew that probably wasn't the truth. He woke up on day 26, knowing that he would need some serious firepower if he wanted to clear the area around the police station. He grabbed an M14 that he had previously found and stocked up on ammo in his bag. Since the power had gone out the other day, he hooked up that trailer generator and decided to take it down to the gas station on the edge of town. He dropped it off there and hooked it up so he could use that gas station as a source of fuel. He then drove up 2 blocks away from the police station and started working on the hordes of zombies that roamed the streets. It took him all day and quite a lot of ammo, but he managed to kill quite a few zombies before night once again fell and he decided to head back to base. It was day 27, and Tough Guy woke up and headed right back to the police station, hoping that there would only be a few zombies left and he could clean them up and head inside. He got there and killed the zombies blocking the way into the police station. It took little work as there weren't that many zombies left, and he made it inside into the main armory. He found a couple weapons and some ammo, but it wasn't nearly as much as he thought he would. He also looted the locker rooms in search for any armor, clothing, or backpacks, but again was quite disappointed. He grabbed all the important things he found and loaded it into his trailer. He looked up and realized he had lost track of time. The sun was already setting, so he slept in a nearby house, deciding that he had killed most of the zombies in the area anyways. After being quite disappointed with his haul, and since he already had his trailer out, he remembered that he had left some items at the gun store and would head back and fill up what he could in his trailer to make sure it was and ensure he got everything he could. He arrived to the gun store, where he saw the piles of zombies that he had previously killed, remembering how much of a fight it really was. Sure enough, when he got inside, he saw many good items that he had previously left behind. He grabbed all of that and put it in his trailer, fighting a few zombies that had shown up. It was still only in the afternoon, so he decided he would go over to the Gigamart across the street to see what supplies he could gather up, hoping to find some more canned food and things along that nature. He went inside to find the shelves mostly unlooted and grabbed what non-perishables he could. Feeling satisfied with what he had, he went back to base, spending the rest of the night organizing everything and resting from the previous day's combat. It was already the end of the month, but Tough Guy wanted to get his safe house all set up and organized. To do this, he needed to level up more of his skills and gather materials that he was lacking to build more stuff. So, he spent days 29 and 30 disassembling, cutting down trees, and building things around his safe house. By day 31, he was completely out of supplies, mostly metalworking stuff. So, he headed to the industrial side of town to loot warehouses. He spent the rest of day 31 and the entire day of 32 looting what he needed, again, mostly metalworking supplies, so he could finish constructing storage containers that he had wanted inside his base. He mostly found what he was looking for, and by the end of day 32, he loaded everything up and headed back to his safe house. Although it was day 33 and technically over a month, this is what Tough Guy considered to be the last day of his first month at the Knox exclusion zone. He spent his whole last day building and organizing his safe house, ensuring that everything was prepared for his next month's adventure. He wasn't sure what the future held for him, but he was ready to face the challenges that lay ahead.